Everyone, today we're going to look at factoring quadratic functions, and our learning goal for today is to be able to find the roots of a quadratic function. Now, just a note on this idea, you hopefully remember from Algebra 1 that whenever we talk about roots or zeros, those are the places where your parabola touches the x-axis, your x-intercept. So I've pulled up one here. This is the function x squared plus 2x minus 3, and you can see that our zeros, also known as our roots, are at positive 1 and negative 3. So we would say that the zeros of this function were negative 3 and positive 1, but you might also hear people say that the roots of it are negative 3 and positive 1. Also, you just hear the words x-intercept or solutions. They're all essentially the same things, just slight differences in what they mean. Officially, functions go with zeros and x-intercepts, and officially equations, you would say they have solutions or roots. But just so that you can keep those straight in your head, just remember, guys, those are your x-intercepts, where your parabola touches the x-axis. And the way that we find those is by factoring a function. And so first of all, it's important to remember that where we touch the x-axis on those parabolas is where one of your numbers is 0. So like, for instance, 0 times 3, that would give you a 0. That's called the zero product property, and we're going to use that idea when we come up with our factors here. So we need to find, whenever you're looking at this, you want to find numbers that would multiply to give you this. In other words, the factors of 12, but then that would also add up to give you this, a negative 8. All right, so when we think of our factors of 12, we've got 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Okay, when you think about those numbers, think in your head, okay, which of those could possibly add up or subtract to giving me a negative 8? And it would wind up being the 2 and the 6. So what we have here is we have an x and an x, and then we have a 2 and a 6, and we needed to wind up making them be positive for the 12, but a negative 8x. So we can accomplish that by making them both be minus in there. And I always, guys, encourage you to just check this. After you've written it, just check it real quick. Make sure you did it right. And so I'll just do that step right here. X times x is x squared. X times negative 6 would be negative 6x. Negative 2 times x would be negative 2x. And then negative 2 times negative 6, that would be our positive 12. Positive 12, and when you combine those like terms, you get x squared minus 8x plus 12, which is what we were hoping to get. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and erase that really quickly. So now that we have these two factors, now that we have these two factors, remember, we're going to use the zero product property. We want to know, when will these equal 0? So in other words, when we do this, we need to find out, when will this be 0, and when will this be 0? Okay, so what we do is we just set up an equation. X minus 2 is equal to 0. Add 2 to both sides, and we know that it's going to be 0 whenever x is 2. Over here, when will this be 0? X minus 6 is equal to 0. So we add 6 to both sides, and that happens whenever x is positive 6. One way that you could check this is by taking these two numbers, this number and this number, and then substituting them back into the equation, and you should wind up getting 0 when you substitute them both in. Another way to check this would be to go to your graphing calculator, or if you're old-fashioned, your graph paper, and type in or graph these functions. It's x squared minus 8x plus 12. So I'm going to change that really quickly. Minus 8x plus 12. There we go, and you can see we did it right. Our zeros are at positive 2 and positive 6, which is what we said they were going to be. All right, another one, and then we're done for this lesson. We have 3x squared plus 12x. Now this one, of course, it's still in standard form, but we don't have a c. All right, so what we do in this case is we got to think, okay, well, what factor might I pull out from each one? And if you look at them, you notice that they both would have a factor of 3, and they both would have a factor of x. So you could pull a 3 and x out of both of them. All right, from the 3x squared, to get it back to be that, I would need to multiply by x, and then I would need to multiply this by 4 to get it back to be the 12x. And again, like I said, it's always a good idea to just check, make sure you did it right. This is 3x squared. This is plus 12x. We did it right. All right, so again, we're going to use the idea of the zero product property. When will one of these things be 0? All right, so we break it off into its two parts. When will this be 0? And when will this be 0? I don't know why I wrote a 0 there. Probably because I was saying it. All right, so let's try this. 3x equals 0. So we divide by 3, divide by 3. And 0 divided by 3 is 0. Okay. The other one, when will that be 0? X plus 4 equals 0. Take 4 away, take 4 away. X is negative 4. You could check this again by subbing these numbers back into the original equation. You should get 0. Or you can graph the original equation and check where your zeros are. All right, so why don't you guys do this problem and this problem, and then we're going to go ahead and stop it there.